Have you noticed that movies are getting longer again? From Oppenheimer, Avatar, and Dune. Do long movies signal a return to epic storytelling in cinema? Or are the directors just out of touch with their audiences? Because let's be honest, we all have really short attention spans. Are long movies a good thing to bring back? Or are we just gonna lose patience? Hi Cinephiles, I'm Brie, and I'm an aspiring actress who's just learning along the way. And it's all through my own research. So if you're here to learn and geek out about movies, you're in the right place. And let's get started. Alrighty, so to begin with, we're going to talk about why movies were long to begin with. Because have you ever watched an old Hollywood movie and you're like, this is like 4 hours long and there's not much plot? I'm going to explain to you why. So the big part about it was epic storytelling and theatrical experiences. So with that, they were able to have a lot more character arcs, a captivating story, and I love those old movies like Casablanca, Gone with the Wind. Like, they're all so good and they're so long because you have to see it like fully unfold and they don't want to just like skip anything, which I really appreciate, honestly. Another huge thing that made them so long was because people enjoyed them to be a full evening event, which means they wanted it to take out a huge chunk of the night. Like, it was a full date night. It was always a fun, big crowd experience, and it wasn't just like a, hey, let's go to the movies. It was like, this is going to be planned thing, and people used to dress up, which we need to bring back. And then another thing that wasn't about the audience was editing problems. So back then, everything was obviously like on a tape, and to edit the movie, you had to let it run all together, and then it's such a complicated way, but then you have to cut what wasn't right, and then you had to like sew it in the next scene, and then you had to do that all by hand. And typically, fun fact, that's actually what the women used to do. Yeah, so it was very difficult to do, so they didn't want to do it more than they already had to. But then obviously, editing evolved with technology becoming easier for directors and screenwriters. And there's also a lot of famous single shots, and I love single shot sequences. They're my favorite. And also, old Hollywood was so creative with those. And there's one movie where there's a scene where he's dancing through a town. And I visited the Paramount Studios, and they said that they used, I think, like 4 sound stages. No, it was way more than that. And it was the same size as an American football field. And the whole scene was just him dancing down the town through the length of a football field. Like, that's insane to me. But yeah, if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about single shot sequences, go check out my video called Making Movies Needs to Be Harder. I go over a bunch of different single shots and essentially like the creativity and coordination that it takes with it. So definitely go check that out. Alrighty, and now we're going to talk about what made movies shorter again. And I kind of briefly went over this, but audience preferences. Some people didn't actually want to see like 4 hours of a story, so they're like, okay, let's make it shorter, which is understandable. Attention spans have really, really lowered. And then technological advancements, which I also just spoke about. And here's the thing. I don't think that every movie should be 4 hours long. Oh yeah, but I love Disney original movies because, like, original Disney animated movies, because they were short because they had to draw every single frame, which is insane. And then I don't think rom-coms should be longer than 1 hour and 30 minutes, because all rom-coms are the same. So the reason why Avatar, Dune, and Oppenheimer are okay is because of the complex narratives, and you kind of need so much room to fit the full story and understand all the context. Especially since Avatar and Dune is such complex world building. And then also, those storylines are so binge-worthy. Like, you're invested in those plots. And then the visual and auditory experiences. I watched Dune Part 2 in the theaters, and that was one of my favorite theater experiences because I felt so immersed. Because the story was super smooth. You were trying to piece together what was going on. And then the score and like the lights and like how it'd be like dark for a second and then it's just like randomly, like I loved it. Kayla's in here and she's laughing at me. But it's true though, because like, I don't know, that was such a captivating experience. So now we're gonna move on to topics to yap about. And my thing with this episode is I wanted to talk about it because it is a thing. Long movies are kind of making a comeback. And, like, yeah. It's just, this is something to talk about. I have a list of things I'm going to talk about, and this one just made sense to talk about. So we're talking about it. But yeah, here's my things to yap about. The streaming's influence. Here's the thing. I think our attention spans are getting a little bit better for movies because of TV shows. Because I almost binge watched a whole season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine because it felt easy because it was only like 20-minute segments. But here's the catch. I think the reason why TV shows are so easy to binge over like 5-hour movies is because it feels less intimidating because you can just choose whenever you're going to stop. And it's like, well, you could choose with movies. But yeah, but it's actually like segments. So, yeah. Oh, and another thing to talk about, I think they need to bring back intermissions for long movies, especially if they're making a comeback. Like Dune, I was dying. I remember both times I watched it in the theater, I had to pee so bad. It was miserable, but I didn't want to get up and leave because it's so like action packed and like you miss like 5 minutes and you're lost kind of a thing. So they need to bring back intermissions, and I know movies that had intermissions was like The Sound of Music, Titanic when that one came out. So we should bring those back. And then it'll also make like the movie experience more pleasant. Because, yeah, can you imagine if Endgame had an intermission? That would make it beautiful. What? It would be so nice. Another thing to yap about is director's vision and creative freedom. The thing with that, I don't know where I was going with that, honestly. Oh yeah, but having longer movies, you can explore more shot types, different story processing, like you can do different POVs, and you can get so much more of the story if you make it longer. But when you're cut down to just making it 2 hours tops, then you have to cut out so much like important information. There's so many movies that I've seen where I'll watch the first movie, I'll like watch the original movie, and then I'll go back and watch the deleted scenes, and they're so good and they add so much more context, but it would have made the movie like 4 hours long. So I feel like it needs to start being acceptable to have those long scenes if it's actually important. But once again, like rom-coms should not have more than an hour and a half, because rom-coms are all the same. So unless we live in time, and that movie was horrible. Don't go see it. It was bad. I was hoping it was going to be like super heartbreaking, but it just wasn't it. They didn't give me enough time to care about the characters because they were too busy cutting to the beginning. If you know, you know. But yeah. Audience preference and patience. The biggest problem with long movies is they seem intimidating, and people are like, oh, my attention span can never. And here's the thing. We need to collectively all bring back long attention spans. And here's how you're gonna do it. Whenever I watch movies now, I throw my phone across the room. I don't need to be on the movie. Like, I don't need to be on my phone while I'm watching a movie. Like, that kind of defeats the whole purpose. Oh my gosh, there's a ladybug on the window.
Speaking of low attention spans.
Anyway, but we need to, like, you need to work on it yourself. That's the thing, is everybody's like, well, I have a short attention span. Then stop scrolling on Instagram Reels as your form of entertainment. And here's the thing. If you have enough discipline to be like, okay, it just fell, Kayla. It literally just... Anyway, if you have, like, my biggest thing that I've been doing now, I've just stopped scrolling on Instagram. And if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna chill for a little bit and scroll on Instagram, instead I'll open Netflix on my phone. And if I'm like, no, I don't want to commit it to a TV show, okay, then I don't need to scroll on Instagram either. So essentially I'm getting myself to like not spend as much screen time. And then also I feel like watching movies and TV shows is so much more like rewarding. Because then you're like, oh, I've seen that, you know? But like watching Reels, you don't remember half of them anyway. That's when I realized my attention span was really bad, because I found a video, then I forgot to save it, but then I wanted to show my siblings. And then I was scrolling through my likes, and I didn't remember half the things I already liked. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is bad, kind of a thing. And I'm naturally already, like, I have horrible memory stuff. So, yeah. But anyway, I've been doing so much better now because I throw my phone across the room, and it's even gotten to the point where when I get home from work, I'll end up just, like, leaving my phone in my room, and I leave it for, like, hours. Like, typically it's, like, 4 hours before I touch my phone again. And it's not like anybody texts me, so, yeah, I'm good. Or anybody needs to text me. Like, if they do, it's never that much of an emergency. I don't have any friends. My favorite things, Kayla, is I say things that I know I'm gonna crop out, but then I go back and edit it, and I'm like, it's so funny. Box office success for long movies. Say that 10 times fast. That was rough. You'd be surprised, but long movies actually do better than short movies box office wise. The reason why the long movies do so well is because it has enough time to fit the story. So then it's really hyped up because people are like, oh, this is amazing, like, and then they recommend it. Like, for example, like the hype for Endgame, that was a long movie, but everybody wanted to go see it because it was so good. And it was the same with Avatar. Everybody was like, this is the most, like, visually amazing movie. And the score's so good too. And yeah, and it's the same for Dune. Like, everybody loved that movie because it was good. It had a good cast, everything. So long movies actually do well because the story's good and everybody hypes it up. Editing and pacing. Long movies can do well if the editing and the pacing is good. For example, like Dune had a couple moments where it was a little slow, but it wasn't horrible. Avatar, that movie is good. Like, I have no problems with that movie. I'll watch it like every night if I needed to. And it doesn't feel that long because it's so fast-paced and so good. And Endgame has a couple slow moments because they had to explain everything, but overall it's still a good movie. So as long as they do the editing and the pacing really well, then it's bueno. Like, for example, We Live in Time, that was a horrible movie. They could have done, if they literally just ordered the movie chronologically and then added a couple more scenes, it would have been perfect. But no, they decided to try to be quirky and then ruin a movie with Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. Am I bitter? Yes, I am. It could have been amazing, and they decided to not make it amazing. Now we're going to talk about pros and cons of long movies, though. And I've already mentioned a couple of these things because I just get ahead of myself and I forget my notes. But pros, in-depth storytelling, which is also what I just said. Like, you can get so much more with in-depth storytelling. Character development, those are also super satisfying because then you really get to know the characters. And like, for like Paul Atreides, that was such a satisfying storyline because you really saw his growth of being just like this innocent guy to then leading an entire nation. Like, that's insane. And that was also super satisfying because you saw the growth of all that and stuff. Epic ambition, which is also kind of what I just said, and that's a lot in Dune, once again, like I just said. And then suspense and tension. That was also a huge thing about the Dune movie that I really liked with Fade Rotha. I can never say his name. I know how to spell it, but I can't say it. And then you also have flexibility and techniques. And I also said that with like director vision and creative freedom. But with that, then you can do a lot of flashbacks and then multiple perspectives, which I think would actually be super cool. And I think they also did that a lot with Dune. So, because you also, that's the thing that I like about long movies, is you kind of care about all the different characters. Because for Dune, you had enough to know about Fade Rotha? I can never say his name. And then Paul. I love how everybody's names are like so crazy, and then Paul. And then, yeah, just like, you really got to know all the characters and their intentions and stuff, and then it gave you time to like understand and care for them, kind of a thing. And then you understand like the stakes of their situation, which was also very nice. Like, I like how Zendaya's character, like, you can see how heartbroken she was and stuff, and how like her opinion of Paul really changed at the end, which once again was very satisfying to watch. I need to watch that movie again. I haven't seen it since the theaters. So yeah, and then the cons of long movies is pacing issues, which was, yeah, is a very common thing nowadays, even for short movies. So, time commitment. It is very hard to be like, okay, I'm gonna go watch a 4-hour movie. Especially with like this generation of everything has to be super fast paced and like everything you get like done 50 billion things in a day. And then viewer fatigue is also a real thing. We don't want to be exhausted of long movies and like, okay, this is another long movie I'm watching. But I think right now they've been doing a pretty good job at keeping it inconsistent enough that when we get a long movie, it's amazing. But if everybody starts making long movies, we're just going to be like, okay, this is garbage, kind of a thing. And then higher production costs is a huge thing. That's a big thing I'm always talking about in my videos, where I'll complain about something, and then I say, I know, like, budgets are a thing. And that's true, because if you have a longer movie, then a lot more time. So, yeah. Because, like, the average movie is only, like, 4 to 6 weeks of filming, is what I've heard. I've never been on a film set. And then, potential oversaturation, which is very similar to viewer fatigue. But yeah, we just don't want to overuse it. So, if you're a director watching this, don't make a long movie unless you actually have a good idea. Also, another thing is filmmakers need to be held to a standard. There needs to be more rules with cinema. They used to have a lot of rules, and essentially what they did is things started getting iffy, and some people started complaining about if there's too much romance and stuff, and they're like, I don't want my kids watching this. Which is also very similar to what happened with Elvis, when they're like, he's dancing like a stripper, we have to get him off his screen. Like, he was banned from television. Essentially, we need to bring back those rules, because yeah, back then the government was like, okay, we're about to make you guys some rules, and they're like, we'll do you one better. We'll make the rules, and we'll tell you our new rules, kind of a thing. And essentially, like, they had a couple rules about, like, how long kisses were supposed to be. I'm pretty sure it was only, like, 3 seconds, which is pretty good. And then, yeah. So essentially, like, they would make rules, so then they can kind of, like, learn to make their way around it. But now I feel like cinema doesn't have any rules, which is no bueno. But yeah, if we held filmmakers to a standard, we just need to be like, have we already seen this before? What makes this story so special that you think you should make this movie? Not just like, I think it's a good idea. It's like, no, like, do you think, if it can't be, okay. If you can see it becoming a fan base, then make it. But if you can't, and you're like, if you were embarrassed to publish it or like produce it, then don't make it. But if we hold all filmmakers to a standard, I think the film could actually have a comeback and be good again. And that's all I want. It just keeps on getting worse. But I do have hope for Wicked. I think that's going to break the internet, and I'm so excited for that movie. November 22nd. Anyway. So that's all for today's video. That's all the points I wanted to bring up, because it's kind of like it's more of like a chatty, like, this is my opinion on this video. It didn't require much researching, just for like history facts and stuff. But yeah, I'm excited for my next video, which is going to be, let me check the schedule. The death of originality and why Hollywood recycles stories. I'm so excited to research that one. Oh my goodness. Another reason why I love this, like, doing this series on my channel is because I'm learning all of this with you guys. I've had a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of experience, like that much. It's barely anything. So I'm literally learning along with you guys, and it's just from a lot of Google. What are your thoughts? I kind of yapped a lot on this one, but what are your opinion on long movies? Like, do you like long movies, or do you think that they should stay short? And should we try to make everyone's attention spans better? I think, like, literally as a society, we all need to agree to, like, work on it yourself and stop using it as an excuse to say you don't want to go to movies. Because it's lame. I have so many friends that are like, no, I can't sit through a 2-hour movie. Or they're on their phones. My sister is that person. I was watching Hocus Pocus, no. I was watching The Haunted Mansion with her. And it's even during, like, a really good scene and stuff. It's different if it's, like, boring talking scenes, and if you've already seen the movie, then you get on your phone. But, like, if you've never seen the movie, and then it's, like, an action-packed scene, why are you on your phone? But, yeah, so she was, like, just on Instagram. And I was like, get off your phone. We're literally watching a movie. And she's like, oh, yeah. Like, just throw your phone across the room. If you want to challenge yourself to do it, and let me know how, like, if you notice a change, definitely let me know in the comments. But anyway, I will catch you guys next time. I'm so sorry that it took me, like, 2 weeks to post for a little while. But I'm back on the schedule. Life was just chaotic because I got 2 new jobs, and I'm finishing off another one. So, yeah, we should be back on the schedule soon, though. Anyway, so I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you later. Bye!
Somebody's Jew!
Dip! Leave your... That's an awkward...